Hi, my name is Meng and welcome back to the 5th section of the Design System course by Design Plus Code. Now, we're going to talk about components. And if you can see here, components is a way to reuse these elements that would be otherwise a lot of work to prepare multiple times and to update them all at once. So you can see the card is repeated multiple times with overrides, so different text and content, and the cells here as well. Let's start by creating a new frame within our design system file. We're going to name it buttons. And delete all the elements here. Now let's zoom in and create a rectangle of 260 by 60, setting the corner radius to 30. And here we can simply apply the gradient style, so this one. Then we're going to put a text that says primary button. Let's set the style to 24 instead and center against each other. For the text, make it white like this, and for the button we're going to use the effect for button shadow 1 like this. So as you can see, this is the result of our efforts in the previous section where we set up and configured all the styles, the gradients, the colors, the text, and we're already using it, and it's really time saving. So in order to create our first component, we need to have at least 2 layers. In this case, we have the text, and this should be centered, and we just need to select both of them together. And here there's a button that looks like 4 diamonds together. If we click on it, and it creates our component. Now the first time that you create a component, it is called a master component, as represented here by the 4 diamonds. But if you create a copy of it, like so, you can see that it's a different icon. So this is a copy of the master component, meaning that if you change the master, it's going to affect all copies. But if you change the copy, you can't change the position, you cannot change the structure of it, but you can change the content. So this is going to be primary hover, and you can see this did not affect the master component, and I can even change any of the styles. So for example, if I want it to be a different color or a different shadow, it's really up to me. So I'm going to set this color to the same, but the drop shadow is different. And then I'm going to create a second copy, and this one is going to be disabled, primary disabled. And because it's disabled, I'm going to use a lighter color, like light blue for example, and there won't be any drop shadow, so I'm going to remove this one like this. So components in Figma are really powerful. You can virtually change any style that you want. The content can be changed on the fly rather than having to go to a separate page like in Sketch. And when you share the design system file as a theme library, the components are going to be automatically included. And you can find the list of your components right here in this tab. Now this is a very simple example of a component, but components can be way more complex than this one. We can nest component, meaning that you can have components inside components inside components, and let's try to do that next. So we're gonna duplicate this and call it cards, and delete the content. So we're gonna create our card. First of all, it's gonna be 300 by 225 with a corner radius of 20, and we're going to use one of the backgrounds like this one, background 4. Let's set a title, which is going to be 20 from the left and 20 from the right. set it to white at 30 with alignment to left, and set the caption as well, change to caption semi-bold. Let's change the color to light blue. Let's change this to caption. Add a drop shadow. So for card shadow 1, and we can create a component out of all of this. So we're gonna go here and create a component. One thing that I forgot is to name my component. So here it's gonna be the card, and these ones are gonna be button. What is cool is that when you change the name of the master component, it actually changed the name of the copies as well. So that can be really useful when you want to find similar layers and groups or components. Let's create a copy to create the hover state. So I'm going to create a copy, 50 distance, and then I'm going to use the scale, so pressing K, and then I'm going to use Option, Shift, and resize to 340 by 255, like so. So this really scale my elements really nicely. So the title and the caption change the font size as well. I'm going to change the drop shadow. So I'm going to use card shadow 2 instead. Now, oftentimes you're going to want to use icons. You want to use the different types of overrides. So right now we can only change the textual content, the image content, the styles. But what if you want to have a collection of elements? So for example, an icon can have multiple layers. You can have different types of buttons, for example. And so you need to create a different subset of components. So let's do that. I want to have a logo of the design tool right here. So let's do that by creating a frame of 30 by 30. Now the reason why I'm using a frame instead of a rectangle is because it's really easy to align whatever element, but whatever icon that is inside that frame. So now I'm just going to drag and drop a bunch of logos. Some of them are in vectors. So these 5 files. The first one is the Figma logo, and I'm going to place it right inside the frame. So this is my frame. I'm going to put my Figma logo inside it. Set it to 0, 0 position, and I'm going to resize it using K to a maximum height of 30. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make it easier, like this, and center it. Now you can see that this is composed of a bunch of layers, and I can create a new component out of all of this. So I'm going to name it logo Figma, and I'm going to create a component from this. So now let's try to put this component inside this component. If we used the master component, you cannot put it inside another master component. So what you need to do is to create a copy of it first, like this, and then now you can put it inside the other component. So I'm going to put this in my master component and move this right here. So 20 from the right, and you might want to change the background to hidden, and you can see that it applies here and here, and it's scale here. Now what if I want to have multiple logos and I want this to be changeable as an override? So what I need to do is to use this component, create a copy like this, and because it's a copy I can detach it. So I can detach the instance like this, and it becomes a frame again. Now this frame, we're going to name it sketch instead, remove the content, and I'm going to move, let's say, the sketch logo select here and paste it right here, set it to 0, and I can use the scale tool again to change the size like this. Now this is my logo sketch, and I'm going to create a component out of it, and from here in the overrides I can change it to one or the other like this. So this is how Figma works with nested overrides. You have to actually select the component inside the component to be able to change its instance. But what you're noticing here is that it's not really properly organized, and we can do a better job at it. So let's do that. We can use a naming convention. So instead of saying logo Figma, we're going to say logos / Figma. And then for the sketch one, it's going to be logos sketch. And so when I try to do the override, I can see the best match, of course, but I can also have section just for logos. So let's repeat the same steps for the other logos. Cool, so now let's make sure to create a component for each. And now test it again. See, we have the best matches, but we also have the logos using the naming convention, and they're all prepared in the same section. Cool, so now that we're done with this, we can basically publish all our changes, all the components, to the theme library. So we're going to click here and make sure to publish, but it's already published. That's because if you don't have a pro account in Figma, you can't use components as a theme library. You can only use styles. Now if you still want to use components, you just need to make sure that you create your design inside of the same file as your design system. So for example, your team can come here and create, let's say, a new page and create a design inside the new page. So for web, for example, create a new design and then just go to the components and use it in that design right here. But if you're in a large team, I don't think it's going to be hard to convince your company to pay $12 a month per user, because at the end of the day, you're saving a lot of money from having to buy so many services such as Dropbox, such as Abstract, Zeppelin, InVision, and so on. Because Figma has all of these features, and on top of that, it has real-time collaboration, and everyone in your team can work with a single source of truth, which is your design system. So I just switched to a pro account, and here I can actually publish all the changes. And you won't just find the styles, but you will also find the components as well. I'm going to switch over to the design code 3 design that we have created so far, and I'm going to try to use the library. First of all, let's enable it. Let's click on this button and then enable design system in Figma. I'm going to disable this one, but I'm going to enable design system in Figma. I can find the components right here. If I go to the components, I can find them from here as well. Let's resize the screen so that we can extend the design a little bit. The first thing we want to do is to create an icon here for try for free. So we're going to go to components and bring the primary component right here. Set it to 40 from the top and change to try for free. Then I'm going to add a caption. So press T and then Command Shift V, get 7 days free trial, and I'm going to change it to caption semi-bold using the color light blue. 28 distance. Let's have some small text as well. I'm going to put this text right here, Command V. And then set it to a color dark green. Then let's add some titles. So this is going to be 12 courses, more coming, and set it to a big title like this one with a distance of 100. Center, and we can play with the gradient since it's a text. We can play from this one, this one. The one that I like is this one. And then we can bring the cards. And so let's say 50 from this and 50 from the left. Let's change the title, so design system in Figma. So here you can see that I didn't configure this correctly. So let's go back and correct that. So as you can see here, the constraint is not properly done. We should do this from top to left, this one from left to bottom, and this one right and bottom. Then we should also fix the way that it aligns vertically. So we should align from the top, and this one should be from the bottom. And once we're done, we can basically go here and publish the change. So now we go to the other file, and anyone in our team, including myself, can review these changes and decide to update it like this. And voila. So all that's left is just to create more content like this. So that's it. We've learned how to create our own design system using components and styles, and we just managed to use it in the official design, and it was a breeze. As you can see, it's so much faster than the first portion of creating the top section here. And we've created something far more complex as well, using the cards, having, you know, component overrides, and so many different assets and content as well. Cool. So in the next section, we're going to learn how to create some of these icons from scratch. We'll have a much deeper look at how booleans work and how to use some of the shapes here, such as the line, the arrow, the polygon, and the star. So I hope you're excited to learn the next lessons, and I'll see you there.